Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. It's unacceptable. The Chase's Darragh Ennis shocking update drops just a few minutes ago. Broken our hearts, this news must see. The summer sun blazed through the large bay windows of Darragh Ennis's Oxfordshire home. It was the kind of golden morning that promised iced coffee, garden reading, and a few relaxed Zoom calls with fellow chasers. But just as he placed his cup of strong Irish tea on the windowsill and opened the French doors to let the breeze in, an all-too-familiar sound filled the air. "Oh no," Darragh muttered, swatting the air around his ear. "Not again." Over the past week, a miniature menace had taken hold of his peaceful home. Flies, dozens of them. Every morning they multiplied, buzzing around his kitchen, diving bomb-style near his coffee, and making themselves disturbingly comfortable on his beloved trivia books. He had tried everything: citronella candles, those sticky hanging strips, high-frequency repellents, even asking Paul Senna if he knew any scientific fly-repelling formulas. Nothing worked. And to make matters worse, he was due to shoot a special chase segment from home in just a few days. ITV producers had suggested a fun behind-the-scenes feature on how the chasers spend their downtime. Let's see your home life, Darragh. Show us the real you. The real Darragh was now being held hostage by insects. It was war. Later that evening, Darragh sat on his leather reading chair scrolling aimlessly through social media while flicking flies off his sleeve. Suddenly, a reel from a wildlife documentary popped up, hosted by none other than his favorite naturalist, David Attenborough. "Flies are drawn by smell, light, and vibration," Attenborough's voice echoed. Darragh's eyes narrowed. Of course. His inner scientist kicked in. He had a PhD in biology. He knew entomology basics. Why hadn't he approached this like a lab experiment before? Fueled by newfound purpose, he reached for a notepad and began scribbling. Hypothesis: if flies are drawn by sensory cues, then eliminate or redirect those cues. He stood, pacing. He needed a method that wasn't chemical, wasn't intrusive, and, most importantly, was genius. By the following morning, Darragh had converted his kitchen into a makeshift entomological lab. Glass jars, essential oils, plastic fans, LED lights, and mesh netting covered every counter. He even borrowed a thermal camera from his old lab just to map temperature patterns in the house. Darragh wasn't just defending his home, he was reinventing domestic fly control. His final creation: a 3-part fly correction system involving lure zone, a warm LED light placed near the compost bin surrounded by sliced lemons filled with cloves and mint oil, redirection tunnel, a mesh tube leading from the lure zone out the window with a small fan creating suction airflow, and barrier fields, thin cotton curtains sprayed with a secret blend of eucalyptus, vinegar, and basil extract. Pleasant to humans, disgusting to flies. He activated the setup. 5 flies instantly darted toward the lure zone. 3 disappeared into the redirection tunnel. 2 bounced off the basil curtains and flew right back outside. Darragh stood frozen. It worked! He let out a victorious laugh. "Take that, you buzzing nuisances!" That afternoon, Darragh casually mentioned his invention during a group call with other chasers. "What's that whirring in the background?" Anne Haggerty asked, peering over her glasses. "Oh, that? My anti-fly genius rig," he replied smugly. Mark Labbit raised an eyebrow. "You built a fly trap?" "Not a trap, a sophisticated redirection system," Darragh said with a grin. "No casualties, just reprogramming their little fly brains." Paul Senna laughed so hard he nearly fell off his chair. "Only you would treat a household pest like a quiz contestant." Bradley Walsh, who had dialed in late, overheard just the last part. "Hold on, you telling me flies now have their own version of the chase in your house?" "Sort of, except I always win," Darragh replied. Bradley clapped. "Genius! You've got to show this on camera." 2 days later, a small ITV crew arrived at Darragh's home to film the segment. Expecting standard B-roll of him reading books or tending to houseplants, they were instead greeted by what looked like the set of a science documentary. "What is all this?" the producer Kay asked, eyes wide. "My fly diversion system," Darragh beamed. "I call it the buzz-off blueprint." The crew laughed, but once they saw it in action, they were stunned. Flies genuinely entered the redirection tunnel and vanished, not one landing on the fruit bowl or the kitchen counter. "This is unreal," Kay said. "Can we film a whole segment on just this?" And they did. The footage included thermal imaging, slow-motion fly shots, an animated diagram of airflow, and even a cheeky skit where Bradley Walsh tried to impersonate a fly trying to beat the system. Darragh narrated with charming Irish wit, explaining the science behind each element, from peppermint's olfactory interference to airflow mechanics. The producers knew they had a hit. The Chase's social media team uploaded the fly segment as a teaser with the caption, "Darragh Ennis versus the flies. Who wins? Hashtag BuzzOffBlueprint, hashtag GeniusChaser." Within hours, it had over 2 million views. Fans flooded the comments, "This man is too smart for Earth, send him to NASA." "Why does Darragh make pest control feel like a James Bond mission?" "Bradley's fly impression is the best thing I've seen all year." DIY bloggers and science channels picked up the story. The buzz-off blueprint was replicated in homes from Brighton to Australia. Even Good Morning Britain invited Darragh for a live demonstration. He arrived with lemon cloves in his coat pocket and a portable version of the airflow system in a tote bag. "It's not magic," he said on air, "just understanding the science of what bugs." The hosts applauded. A few weeks later, Darragh returned to the ITV studios to film a new episode of The Chase. As he walked into the green room, he was greeted not with quiz sheets, but bug questions. "Mate, how do I stop wasps getting into my conservatory?" Mark Labbett said, tossing aside a trivia book. "And I've got moths, those little jumper eaters. What's the blueprint for them?" Ann added. Darragh laughed. "Didn't think I'd become the insect guy." "Too late," Bradley said, entering with a cheeky grin. "They're calling you the bug whisperer on Twitter." Even the producers mentioned that The Chase had seen a 15% bump in viewership after the viral clip. A follow-up episode was being discussed. Chasers versus nature. "We might make it a special," the producer winked. "You versus a whole beehive." Darragh smiled. He didn't mind. After all, he'd found a surprising new niche where science, humor, and everyday life collided. And more importantly, his house was finally fly-free. By late summer, the buzz-off blueprint had evolved. Darragh partnered with a small eco-brand to launch a DIY anti-fly kit. It sold out in a week. He even published a short ebook, "Don't Bug Me: The Everyday Genius Guide to a Pest-Free Home," filled with tips, science facts, and a foreword by Bradley Walsh titled "The Man Who Outsmarted a Fly." Fans sent in their own inventions, photos of fly-free kitchens, and even thank you notes from children who recreated the airflow system for school science fairs. Darragh, once known only for outsmarting contestants, was now being praised for outsmarting nature itself. Still, he remained humble. "It wasn't about the flies," he often said. "It was about using what we know to make life a bit better." And for Chase fans everywhere, it was one more reason to love the quietly brilliant, wonderfully quirky Darragh Ennis. Epilogue: A Buzz-Free Future. On the one-year anniversary of the viral video, ITV aired a mini-documentary titled "Brains and Buzz: How Darragh Ennis Changed Home Life One Fly at a Time." It featured interviews, success stories, and behind-the-scenes outtakes, including a hilarious moment when a fly landed on Bradley's nose during filming, prompting him to yell, "Darragh, it's back!"